A few years ago, I think it was like about maybe 2000. I remember sitting across from a 50-year-old queer, an elder, right? QUIA. It's what we call a Maori, you know, leader or elder, or fire, right? Queer or fire. Queer is the elder person. Fire is like an auntie, right? Middle-aged. And I was on a radio show, and I had my own show with her. She would like sit there and watch, do the DJ because she was more experienced than I was. And it was a Maori radio station, by the way, guys. It was a tribal radio station, right? And somehow, through my friend who was her nephew, I ended up being the only one ending up doing this after he decided not to do it as well. And so I did it for 2 years. And every Sunday I would go on there and talk about something. And one Sunday I talked about abuse and how, everybody's silent. It's happening in happens and everybody's silent. She looked at me afterwards. She said, "Why did you talk about that?" I said, "Well, there's something I was, thinking about and, reflecting on." And she said, "We have a lot of this in our culture." And she said that nobody ever talks about it. And yet here you are. Here you are on our station talking about it. And she was quite glad that I did. I remember there was no malice or anything. She was talking like that because, I was able to, at that age, I was around about 20 something. So I wasn't that old, and it was very interesting to have that come from her, that it kind of at that time made me think that I was on the right track. However, 20 years later, 5 years ago, well, not almost 20 years later, all right, but 5 years ago, nothing had changed. Right? I was talking about, back then I was talking about suicide and stuff and, violence and stuff, and nothing had changed. So this show, right, which is going to glorify, and that's how I say it, exploit that whole situation, the misery and everything, and it's going to have the full, I'm not sure what what the twist is going to be, right? It's 30 years later, so it's now, because it is 94. So next year when they bring it out, it'll be 30 years, right? 2004. So I just see this, it's just exploitative. And I think, it's weird. Like that's the first thing I thought. What do you think, Hawk?
I, I, I'm kind of worried that it's going to glorify that kind of attitude, but,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna just talk a little bit about me personally. I grew up with real abuse. My stepfather was in the military, and he come back from Vietnam, and he was a POW, and he experienced some very, very degrading things in the POW camps, and he was having a hard time coping with it. I've forgiven him for all that he's done, and I know that a lot of my family members have not forgiven him, and there's still resentment there and a lot of fronts. He was a very smart man, extremely smart, really, really smart, but he was self-medicating, to get through this pain and torture and this constant thing that's running through his mind, that it's just never going away, and he can't really get any depth in it. And he couldn't control himself once he self-medicated, just like this situation. They completely lost control when he began self-medicating. And he's not the only person in my family that this is plagued. My brother experienced this, and there's tons of stuff where this is becomes kind of hereditary because it's taught to one another. And I think it even predated him being in the military
Mm,
about this stuff being dealt with like that. And I personally believe that this is a government problem. This is a problem that should squarely rest upon the government's shoulders. And I'm going to point out why. I'm going to point out why. That we can have a much better life by having this under control. And what I mean by that is not persecuting people. That's
mm,
not what I mean. What I mean is here in the US, they've defunded mental health programs, even for soldiers getting out.
mm,
And personally, my opinion is that if you are a soldier and you're coming back from war, that I think you need at least 6 months where you're still on camp at camp. You're not just coming straight home and taking it to your family. You're
mm.
still living on base, and you're slowly integrated back into the system of being a civilian, and no longer that, where you can see a professional and have a counselor, a psychologist, and work through some of those things. And if you need it, a psychiatrist. And for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna point out here, okay? A I'm going to point out what a psychiatrist is. A psychiatrist is someone that can write you medications on your mental health. A psychologist is someone that will try and work through your problem without medication. Okay. And these are doctorate level degrees, both of them. A counselor or a therapist is someone that, and we're going to talk about therapists. A therapist is someone that is going to listen to what's going on and try and give you some advice. There is certificates and degrees associated with it, but it is below a psychologist, right? And then you have a counselor. A counselor is someone that can go get a degree on a weekend over here, and they can be a counselor, right?
Yeah.
It's a very light program.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is that a lot of, I believe this to be a mental a program that should be underneath the governments. I really believe it is
mm.
that this is something that should be easily obtained to help work through problems rather than hurting people.
Yeah.
And here in the US, they've defunded and defunded and defunded these programs,
Yeah.
and there's more people that need them now, not less. And when they come out of the military, they go straight back into the family. What if they're not ready to go back into the family,
Mm,
especially coming out of at a time of war? Yes, I don't mean keep them from their family. What I'm
yeah.
saying is they still need to report to the base. They need to go through the process of becoming normal again. They're no longer a soldier. They don't need to wake up in the middle of the night with a knife holding their hand. You know what I mean? It's not that
Yeah.
kind of situation anymore. And they need the time and they need structure. They need to have
Mm,
someone still in charge of them, telling them you be at your counselor at 0600, and if you're not, you're going in the brig,
yeah.
so they can be forced to get the help they need because
I
they can't control themselves. And
I had to
go
carry
ahead.
on. Sorry. Yeah. So I was gonna. I'd forgotten about this, but you just brought it up. So uh, as you know, right, and I've been open about this, and I actually was on one of my friends' podcasts a while back, and in about 2010, 2011, 2012. I don't know, those dates get all messed up because they head injuries. So within about 4 months, attempted suicide twice, and I'm getting to what you're saying. I'm really so the second time I was I was in hospital because they pumped out my stomach or whatever they were done. I woke up, my sister's there, and the nurse is there with a chart, right, with a clipboard, and she goes, Mr. Singh, we're gonna we think you need help, and we are going to put you in the mental health ward, which is just over there, right? I've walked past it before. Like the hospital. Um, and so I look at my sister, and goes, yeah, you you know, you better go, or they're going to force you to go, right? And so I went into the mental health ward for 2 weeks. I was put on a because of my system was all messed up, right? Because all the chemicals in there, the pills I'd taken, horrible pills, and I didn't remember. It must have been a whole bottle of them, because I don't remember between taking them, putting a Facebook post, to waking up the next day. I don't remember. All I remember is my brother-in-law carrying me out of the room, into the lounge, and out the door. That's all I remember, because I was kind of like boarding a room. Now, if that hadn't happened, I think I would have done it again, because you know, once, bitten, twice shy. Once bitten for me was like, okay, was easy the first time. Let's do it again. I won out. However, seeing my sister say, look, I don't want to deal with this anymore, right? This grief anymore. You need, you get in there and get sorted, or, I'm out, kind of thing. And so, you know, I, yeah, I was locked up, basically, not allowed to leave. I had my own room for about a week. And then after that week, about 4 days, and then they looked at all my medications. They said, this is the wrong medication for you. This is the wrong medication for, what the hell's going on with this one? And they said, well, you've been on too many meds, and it's been messing with you, right? And not letting you think straight, and so on, and all that. So I always refer to it as a chemical overdose because of that, because I just couldn't think clearly anymore. And so, but anyway, so in that time, like Hawk is referring to, and I really back it, because it helped me, is that I got an opportunity to, because the fact that I was at a point where I was out, that it was either sign my life away for, until I'm ready, or they will force me into there, because my sister would let them, because she had enough, right? My little sister, who's like about 8 years younger than me, would do that, and I'm glad she would have, and I would have been so proud of her, and I'm still proud of her, the fact that she said go, you know, and I think if I didn't have that, like I said, I could have been a mess, and I might not be here, and I think when when you're someone like me who doesn't like to turn violence on other people, you turn it inwards. But you've got cases like this where that violence is about everybody else being the cause of it, and you've got to take it out on them. But then again, and I don't know more about this, but I want to ask you, Hawk. You know, there's so many stories we hear about veterans coming back and not being able to deal with them, and them Minecrafting themselves, right? As we like to say, to not, um, you know, not be worried about on YouTube. But I I think I've been thinking about the minority service people for a while, as I think about my granddad, right? Um, and his service during World War II. We don't treat our service people with respect enough. We don't treat their families with enough respect. And so we take away all the resources that help them. We expect them to put their life on their life on the line for us to have a better life. And then when they need us, we just slap them in the face and go, no, we don't care about you. You've done your bit. Get lost now. I'll let you carry on, Hawk, because yeah, I just wanted to put that in there because of how it helped me by being locked up for 2 days, up 2 weeks.
So I'm really angry at my government because of this. I really am. I think that even my son, who had went into the military and came out, he needed transition time. He needed it. He really did. He needed it, even though he served just one tour. Or, he needed the time to be able to integrate back into society. He wasn't ready, and
Yeah,
he destroyed his world coming out of it. And I really believe that our health epidemic is a government issue. If they would solve this, a lot of these other problems that they're seeing would go away. And it's
yeah,
not just for people in the military. It's for individuals in our health
mm.
in our in the world that
Society.
they need
Yeah,
help. The society needs help. And by making it so hard to get insurance where these things are taken care of and can be taken care of, and
mm,
then on top of it, it's the idea. There's an idea that, oh, I don't want to go see someone in that. I don't want to go see a counselor. I don't want to go see a therapist because then people are going to think I'm crazy. I got news for you. Just because you go see a therapist or a counselor doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't. You're
mm,
not clinically anything. Nothing. You're just needing someone to talk to, and that's usually all it is. Now, I have been to see them. I have been to see them and tested and all of that. There's nothing wrong with me whatsoever.
mm,
I'm completely healthy in that regard. There's nothing going on there, in my world. But my problem is that they don't offer enough help for people that do need it. That
yeah,
that and we look at it in such a negative tone for being such a social creature. It's
yeah,
insane. This is the true insanity of it all. We are social beings. We need each other. It is proven, documented that we have
yeah,
to have social interaction or else we fail. We have to have social interaction as young kids or we become feral. We have to have
mm,
social interaction or we become angry, mean, removed, and everything else. We are
yeah,
social creatures. We are bound by our social media. We are social in every aspect. Society alone is built on social, the social
mm,
aspect of it. Everyone takes a part in what needs to get
mm,
done to build society bigger. So, why would we abandon them whenever it comes down to the social need? Why would we look at it as you're inferior because you need someone to talk to? It's
mm,
crazy. That is the crazy part. That is the insanity right there.
mm,
The fact that people see this as I don't want to go see a psychologist or I don't want to go talk to anybody because then everyone's going to think I'm crazy. That's the crazy
mm,
part. That's the insanity. That part I don't get. So
mm,
I believe that governments really need to offer this as a regular bit of programming rather than defund it. They should have been upfunding it to help with people like this Generation Z that's coming out that has severe anxiety issues. If they
mm.
just offered someone that they can talk to and listen to on a regular basis, and not someone with gender politics identities or blah blah blah,
Yes, I
all
was
this
thinking
other
of exactly
nonsense,
that.
right?
Yeah, just affirming whatever they think. And like, here's the thing, right? So
Yeah.
I went through that shit, like, about affirmation, right? So, dang, I only just thought of it now, right? So I remember in 1994. So, like I said, I had a lot of trauma in my life as a child and so on, and it went into it as, didn't get dealt with. And so at one point, I think I was about 20, 21. I come back out of, I had a relationship, and my girlfriend at that time, you know, who I'd been with for a long time, um, was forced into getting an abortion, and I had to sign it away, agree to it, because of, so on, whatever. So when I came back, I was very traumatized on top of my own problems, and so I was cutting myself. Right, so I'd be like sitting there and just putting out cigarettes on my arm. And so this is when I was away from, like, my second year of my chef school. You know, so I'd be like, you know, grabbing a blade and just, you know, cutting across my head, and a lot of crazy shit. Like putting like I've still got some marks here. Putting you know, putting back like pins across the wrist there, and so, you know, and I mean the safety pins, right? So there's, you can see the ink because I've stuck the ink there just so you can see it, right? So I'd get like what is it called? Grab, you know, a safety pin and stick it through, and then grab Indian ink, kind of make like a tattoo of it. So I've got kind of like one there, but like I used to have like cuts all across here, and so over the tattoo. But I think I've tattooed over it, so you can't see you can't actually see. I actually you can see. Like, hold on, I'll show you. So you can see I'm not BSing you, right? Um, how bad it was. So you can see that marks across here. That's cigarette burns, all in a line, right? So, and across here, some places they're like cuts. There's still cuts there. So, you know, basically tattooed over it, and then I tattooed over it again to actually get rid of, you know, try to design something out of it that doesn't look like an ugly little thing. So,
And,
you know, and here, yeah.
and I want to say, for those of you that are listening, that's not cool. You
No,
know, it's not cool. But
this is what
you
I'm
know,
getting. That's what I'm getting to. How, like, this is what I'm getting to. So I was. That's how crazy it was. How traumatic it was. So
well,
here's what's here's the next step. Here's what led me
hold
to
on,
what
Rue.
I'm trying to get to.
Hold on,
So
just put a pin in it just
uh,
a second.
okay,
Well, I just want to say that it sounds badass, but it's not cool.
it's
You were
not.
hurting yourself. And
It's
if you're
not good
listening
at
to
all.
this, if you're
Yeah,
listening to this and you're
yeah,
thinking that there are better ways, you need to go talk to somebody, you know, but
yeah.
whether it be a
That's what I'm getting
psychologist or
to.
someone in your family. But
Yeah,
go ahead, Rue. I'll let you take it from there.
yeah. So some, like, there was two. There were occupation when where I was staying was a nurses hostel. So there were, like, you know, there was a catering students, there were other students, and then there was an occupational nurses. So they were studying. They're from England. So they're from the UK over here doing their OE study thing. So anyway, one of them saw me and goes, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Listen," because I think you need help, right? And this is where I hate this whole thing, and I know this is when the whole information shit came around. So I go there and I go, I've got this happening with me, and, you know, and this, and here's what they said. She said, right? I hate this person the most ever. Counselor, whatever feels good, do it, right? And she was talking about something else, but she was trying to help me not, you know, that was her way of stopping me from hurting myself, you know. And like Hawk said, it might sound cool. It's not cool, right? As you can see, I've covered over it because that's how much I just, you know, I've gotten over it. But the scars were there for a while, and I'd always cover it, you know, cover over it because it just looks gross, and it, you know, it reminds me of what happened, what was like that situation. So, you know, you want to leave it past behind, and I can't because it's always there. So, but I mean, you know, it was real traumatic. And then this person turns around and goes, "Whatever feels good, do it," affirming that, you know. And that's where I think that's where it came around. I think the affirmation thing came around about the 90s or the mid 90s, and where whatever you went in with, they just agreed with it because they felt that was the right thing to do, rather than going, "What, you know, what is really going on? You know, why?" You know, and I actually told her, I said, "This is what's really going on." She goes, "Oh, you know, do it. If it feels good, do it." I walked away and I did it. And I was even more traumatized because of it. And it's, you know, I'm still dealing with it, you know. And I think this is what we're going to find. And it's not my place to talk about what people choose to be their gender or whatever is going on with them. And, you know, but I'll tell you what, I think, without even trying to hurt your feelings, I don't care what you think about whatever, But here's what I know. If you act upon something immediate that's happening in your life immediate without thinking about long-term effects of it, you will only hurt yourself more. So if you don't look at the end result of your action today, when somebody says this, it's okay, cut it off, and you don't think about, hey, what will happen in 5 years? What if I decide to have kids? What if I want to have a family? I got to live with this and for the rest of my life. Those people who are actually affirming that, they get their money. They get their, like, whatever credentials go higher up the chain, but you are the one who's left with the damages to deal with for the rest of your life. That's why you see older people who have dealt with these things, who have dealt with trauma, who've dealt with sexual, things, assaults and stuff, always say, that you got to deal with it first, that issues, before you can deal with do anything else. You can't make drastic changes in your life if you only think about right now. And whenever you only think about right now, your focus is so pinpointed to it that you should get someone who has it. Like if somebody's saying, yeah, you affirming you do that, you go, well, let's get another opposite view of it. Get someone else who's not thinking that and ask them why. And have get 2-3 different opinions, because in the end you'll find out that while you're talking it out, you'll be able to understand more about yourself. What is really hurting me? What is really causing this? Why am I feeling this way? Because as you talk it out, as Hawk was saying, because of this mental health care, that once you talk it out, it's out in the open. It's not still stuck in here. It's not still stuck in here. It's out in the open, which means what you were thinking is now out here. Now you can deal with it. Now you can write it down. You can think about how to work through it. The problem is they just want to write checks, right? The insurance will pay for it, especially in the US, right? The insurance will pay for it. And they'll get their insurance money and you'll be away, and they'll do what they need to do. The next level up, they'll cut it off. The next level up, they put plastic. And you're out there now. You got to go. Now you got to get the clothes to fit. Now you got to make sure that you're taking care for the rest of life on those medications. Really think about that. You are now a product. That's not a product. What is that called, Hawk? When you're a commodity for the medical system to now use you forever, make money of you forever, and that's what I really grind at.
They're going
Yeah, exploit it.
Exploitation is one part of it, but I'm not for certain, that now that they're going to be a lifetime user of all of these products,
Yeah.
But
it feels like an industry.
I hear what you're saying, and that's part of the bigger picture that we're discussing here. But the focus is this, and I think I want to go back to it. Let's talk about We Were Warriors, and let's talk about the Jake character played by Tim Morrison.
Hmm.
What if, rather than the first time that this thing happened,
right?
Yeah, he may have spent a night in jail, right? But rather than try to make him pay fines and everything else, what if weekly then he had to show up and it was mandatory, and if he missed one of his sessions, rather than persecute him for it, you forced him to go get help, and if he missed one of his sessions, he spent a week in jail. I mean, 1 full week. If you miss it, if you're late and you don't show up for that, it's a week in jail. Yeah, he would lose his job. You know, it would be worse for him to spend a week in jail, right?
Yeah.
You missed your appointment with a therapist. You're a week in jail. Now, we don't want a therapist that has radical ideas. No, we
Yeah.
need to be fairly in the center, and that could be hard to find someone in the center. I get
Mm.
that, and that's part of the problem because a lot of people don't even see their therapists as a decent job opportunity anymore, and that's part of the
Mm.
issue as well. So if he was forced to show up one week, do you think that the same outcome would have happened? Probably not. I don't think it would have. It might have changed somewhat. Something good would have come of him going.
Yeah. I think, I mean, like, you're talking about like between first and like the sequel, right? When you get,
I,
with the
I'm
what
talking about
becomes a broken heart.
I'm talking about the first time. Like
Right. So
he
the
had already
first,
spent he had already spent some time in jail for abuse, right? He got
right.
arrested, right? And then rather than him being fined, which he didn't have a job with more money, which puts more pressure on the situation,
Yeah.
he's told, hey, you're going to go for the next 6 months. You're going to go see a therapist, and it's going to
Mm.
be X amount of time. And if you don't show up, the police are going to come pick you up, and then you're going to county you're going to go sit in jail for a week,
Mm.
right? So the stakes are really high for you to go, even if you don't say anything, right? And you just
Yeah.
sit there. No one's going to spend a week in jail for an hour of their time. It just has no
Yeah.
value, right? And you know, on top of that, I think that would have slowed this whole process down. At least it was
Yeah.
headed in a positive direction.
Yeah. One thing I know, like his thing, like, so the other week, I was in a situation where someone like Jake was there, right? Had been drinking, 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 and now was at a point where he just wanted to take his aggression out, whatever he's feeling on those, on a particular person. And I was like thinking, why? I was just sitting there like thinking, why? Because I was sober, right? And there's two other people there, and even they were just like, ignoring it. I'm like, you know, why? And then the idea was like, oh, it's because the white man did this, it was the white man did this. Like, I'm thinking, what? It's like, how long are you going to live under a cloud that like it's everybody else's fault but mine? Because the guy was drinking. And so rather than going figuring out what, something better for himself, let's blame other people. And I think this is what, like, the situation here with this character, Jake, right? So he's lost his job, right? And so he loses his job at yeah, fired from his job and struggles with unemployment. So that is basically, you kind of go, well, when you look, I really don't and I like the idea when you talk about hereditary there, you find that like in those families it just carries on, right? In those sort of settings, it doesn't matter what culture it is. And I have in my own culture, so I'm not trying to point out for the Maori culture. I'm showing this off as what it is. It's society. It's a damaged family that has a father, who's taking out his anger and frustrations on his own families and using alcohol as medication, right? He's spending all his time with his mates, getting drunk, um, you know, and he thinks he's the man, right? Because once, he's that guy, right? The tough guy, Jake Musk, or Jace Musk. It's the first thing they say is like, you're Jake, you're the Musk, Jake Musk son, you know. And it's kind of, it's frustrating on to see that they want to make it into a TV show. It really is, because when we were watching it at cinema, like I said, I was angry when I walked out. I was shaking with anger, because when I was in Auckland, one of my friends was Grace. No, she didn't Minecraft herself. but she was Grace. But it was in family, right? Like her dad. So when I came out and with that, I was going, all I could think about was her, right? And yeah, and I was like, and then I could, I could reflect on the other, drunken behavior around me, but not so much because at that time I was self-medicating myself, as a 20-year-old dude. And I would still be, I think I didn't stop self-medicating for a couple of years later. I think, no, it took me 2 years later. And then I stopped because I got involved with, with the church group, and I just found that I didn't need it anymore because I was having so much fun doing other stuff, being around people, like you said, society, right? So I wasn't insulated anymore. I was like out there going to group events and stuff, talking to people about what I was going through, and it was kind of my mental therapy, mental health, being in a situation where I could actually talk things out with people, frustrations and stuff, what was going through. And I spent a lot of time around mentors, you know, learning about things, learning about life, and because I was no longer concentrating on my own pain, and was able to, kind of get more clarity on life. But yeah,
There, there's
well,
two more pieces of this that I really want to point on, and I've dealt with a lot of this stuff in my family, a lot of this, a lot, and I want to point on two more things, and one is a societal issue, and it stems from women, and I really want to push on this. A woman's value is not in the money she brings in. It is not. It has nothing to do with the money she makes. Nothing. It has to do with her being nurturing and gentle and supportive and willing to go out of the way to do whatever is necessary for her as a mother, for her as a woman, what she might bring, what her thoughts, her ideas, her points of view, her laughter, her sense of humor, all of these other things. It has nothing to do with money. Not a damn thing. So why does it matter when a man only value is that he has to bring in money? Let me ask that question. I want you readers to think about that. A man, why does it have to be his only value? And you're probably thinking, well, it's not his only value. But yet it's the first and common trait that everyone looks for. Does he have a job? Does he bring in income? Is he helping take care of his family? When helping take care of, and I put that in parentheses because that equals to what they're thinking is money. And that is not his value. That may be something he does, but that is not his value. And I hate it when people use that term. That really frustrates me because his value is bringing to his family is common sense, his sense of humor, the ability that he can help out with things that need to get done. Not necessarily money. Money doesn't equal his value. Jake in this situation is upset because he can't support his family or because he doesn't have a job, because everyone equates it to him having money. When Jake's value could have been in 1,000 different ways. Now, Jake loses on every front in this film, right? He loses every which way. He's a complete loser in this situation.
Yeah.
Not only can he control himself drinking, not only can he control his emotions, he's not being a good father. There's several pieces of this that he fails at. But I want to point out there that we have to stop equating the value of money to whether or not a person is good or bad. That is not exactly controllable by you as an individual all of the time, right? Yeah. The stock market could crash. You could be a billionaire, and the stock market crashes. You got it all tied up, and then all of a sudden you've got nothing. And here in the U.S., people were jumping out of the New York Empire State Building and whatever to kill themselves because their value had went down to zero. That was not their value. You see my point? My point is their suicide wasn't necessary because that's not who they were.
Right.
But please don't make your life about money. It's not.
Yeah.
It is not. That is not who you are. That is not who, that does not equate your value. It doesn't. That is just something you do. And women, please stop using men to say that his only value is money. If that is why you're with him, do him a favor and do yourself a favor and leave.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it, right? Is I wanted to point that out, that too many people, especially women, want to equate a man's value only to being whether or not he can provide for me. And that's not right. It's really not right. That's not his value. You know, what if he's a good father? What if he takes care of his children, make sure that they're safe and that you don't have to worry about them? Make sure that that everything is taken care of. What if he is a good soldier, but he can't afford to provide you with everything you need? You know what I mean? What if he's just what if they have other things that they bring to the table that you don't? And people really need to think about this, because this has gone too far and it degrades men. It's probably the most degrading thing that people do to men, and Jake is a part of that. And the second one is this: the little girl that loses her life. Kids need to be heard, and this is the scary part, right? They need to be heard. Little ones, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up till they're 17 and 18 years old. They need to be heard.
Yeah.
Now, who they hear it from is important. Who's listening to them is important.
Yeah.
If you have a radical fanatic that only wants to exploit them for sex, and they're listening to them, they're going to have influence. Yeah. If you want to have influence over your kids, listen to them. Just listen to them. You know? And if you are in that situation where you can't listen to them, find someone that you trust that will listen to them. So they don't go out and get someone with radical ideas that are trying to push things like gender politics on them and all of this other stuff. And if you don't give someone for them to talk to, if you don't, they will talk to their friends, and their friends have no good ideas, I promise you. They're too young to know. Yeah. And on top of that, if they can't talk to them, they're going to go to YouTube or social media, which is worse. Okay.
Let me find you something. I just remembered I actually have a video I was going to show, and it's in that regard. So give me 1 second, because I was supposed to put it up, but I didn't get. I was going to put it on my personal one, but
And I want to tell you, people that are listening to this out there, I am not the best father in the world. I'm really not. I try, but I am not father of the year, right? That's not me. I'm telling you what I learned from experience. I'm telling you what I learned from my failures and my successes. You know, and they need to have boundaries, and they need to have someone that they can listen to. Without the boundaries, they will push until there's no end, and that's just a human trait.
Right. So this is a mum.
I was just giving them a little bit of advice and letting them know that I'm not the perfect dad, and I'm telling them this from my successes and failures, and that this is what I've learned throughout this time. But
And we should not be led by the children, for goodness sake. The children are called dependents for a reason. They depend on us who have fully developed brains. You cannot feel your way through life. The issues that we are talking about, we are bringing you statistics. We are talking about scholastics. We are talking about funding. We are talking about busing. We are talking about trying to figure out how to make our children be as successful as possible. They call us Marxists and hateful and bigots and everything else under the sun. Well, let me tell you, less than 5% of the entire population of North Carolina identifies as LGBTQ. You guys all claim you want democracy. Well, you know what democracy is? It's the majority plus one. It's 50 plus 1. You know what? More than 50% of the people in this state claim that they believe in God, Almighty God, who made us male and female. We are discussing things with them that they are not emotionally, intellectually, and morally able to handle. That is what is causing the anxiety. That is what is causing the depression. That is what is causing the confusion.
And while you're checking that, we're
Yeah.
talking about this because if that little girl she was journaling, right?
Yeah.
And she was trying to express her emotions through her journal. And when she was looking for a way to talk about it. So again, if this little girl had some form to be able to, talk about her feelings, it probably would have been a different situation even for her. I don't know how old the girl was in the film, but that's why we're talking about this stuff right now.
Mm.
But it's real important that whoever they cannot be pressing their gender identity, gender politics, and all
Mm.
of this other nonsense on them. They cannot, and they have to be careful with what they say. They
Right.
need to be more careful with what they say than with an adult. You know,
I
you've always watched people whenever they've been on the shrink's house, and the shrink is like, "Mm-hmm," in the movies, "Mm-hmm, yeah,
mm.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah, mm-hmm." That's
They
really
never
all they
ask
need to do.
anything. Yeah, they never ask anything pointed, or it's like,
What I'm saying is that would be better than some of the advice that they give sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just listening. The thing is, like, I was kind of in Grace's situation. I used to, I remember writing down one thing, a story. That was my way of dealing with it, was writing stories. So in finishing here, I couldn't get that thing to work. I'll work it out. I'll put up a post later. Um,
So what was the lady saying? Just tell us what she was saying.
she's basically saying that kids, like, schools aren't there to put, they're just there to teach stuff, and the kids don't know nothing, right? And so when you're trying to you're trying to influence them the anything else way, it's you're messing with them. But yeah, I'll sort that out. But I mean, I think my worry for kids these days is social media screwing them up,
100%,
and
100% agree with that.
and it's cheating them out of real experiences in life, like real friendships, real opportunities of dialogue, of real interaction, and making real friends, actual in life friends, IRL, like they say, right? But because they feel so disconnected from society and people around them, they just, they find friends online who have their own agendas. Like I've listened to testimonies of people, people talking about how they ended up thinking there was something else, like that, especially gender thing, right? And how an older man, you know, groomed a young boy, right, or a young girl into becoming something else, and and this is what I'm terrified about what's happening in society right now. The grooming. Having been someone who's gone through grooming, right? I know what the damage it can cause. And I think, I don't, I'm not going to bounce around publicly and say this, because I just don't think it's anybody's business. But there's some things, that I just despise, and it's the way social media and activists groom children, right, and teenagers, and cheating them of life's experiences. That's, like using them to, like, exploit other children. Using children to exploit children, because they're just savages. These people, they're like, they're disgustingly evil. and they just want to exploit people, and you know, they want to get their thrills themselves, because that's what it is. Groomers, all they care about is themselves. And in this case, right, like Jake, right, getting back to Jake, he is only wrapped up in his own world, right, as a character, as a person. And I've seen many of them, right, in real life. And I've been one of them, right? So wrapped up in your own, in my own world, and not seeing the trees because of the forest, right, kind of thing, or the forest for the trees. But I think if you as a parent, or if you as a relation to a child, are not safeguarding those kids from being exploited online, or by others around them, you're doing a disservice to them, and those children will turn on you one day and ask you why, right? Why did you let this happen? And at that time, you're thinking, oh, I was just trying to be more encouraging of what you're feeling. Yeah, but kids, this is what I wanted to put the video on with the kids. They don't know nothing. Their minds aren't made up yet. Like the brains aren't actually formed properly yet until they're about 20. I learned that when I was doing the study on youth, because I was a youth worker, right?
Right.
I had to read a whole bunch of books.
Male brains is, for the female brain, it's 20. For the male brain, it's 30.
Right.
So males still have a lot of growing to do. So this is why women say, well, they're so immature at that age. Well, yeah, they are immature. Their brains aren't developed, and neither is yours.
Yeah.
That's the true factor of it. And I agree with you. There's lots of data out there, and if anyone wants to challenge me, I'll put up proof to give you proof of this. But there's about 30% of grooming when it comes to this stuff online.
Yeah.
That there's 30% now of
Yeah.
grooming for transgender identities and things like that. And I am for
Yeah.
transgender. I want everyone to understand. I am
For
for
real.
I'm
Yeah. For
for
the
real
real
people.
people.
I am not
Yeah.
for any child whatsoever
Yeah.
going through any of that stuff. They don't need it. If
Yeah.
they get to 18 and they want to make those choices, then okay,
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
that's fine. But from here to A to B, they have no need for it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Yeah.
agree with phones that you know, and this is what I tell parents, and a lot of people have not listened to me, and I'm going to tell you why they haven't. And I've only got about 2% left on my phone, so I'm probably going to die here any second.
Yeah.
Take your phone. Kids don't need a phone. This is becoming more popular now, but I was able to save my daughter from being from all of this, and I can get into it deep. Taking her phone away was the best thing I could ever do. Best thing that happened to her was me removing those electronics out of her hand. She didn't have any access to them, and our whole world changed. She became a much better person. She became a much better child. She became a much better, student. Everything changed because of that. And it equates down to this. When they are hanging around your house, the likelihood of them running into a pedophile is pretty low. The likelihood of them running into someone that's going to manipulate them is pretty low. They have a select people that they're dealing with. When you put them online, you are opening them up to million people that only want to take advantage of them. The likelihood of them being taken advantage of goes exponentially higher just by numbers alone. You can't win against that. You can't. And if you want them to have a better life, I know you take the phone away. And I get a lot of parents that tell me this. Well, my daughter's different. My daughter's special. My daughter's not like that. She can handle it. My son's not like that. He can deal with it. Well, my son's different. No, they're not. They're not different. They're finding ways to manipulate you without you even knowing about it. And I know that I care about my kids. I'm certain you care about yours. Just take the phone away. They don't need it. They don't need it. They can't use it responsibly. And I'm certain that every parent most parents, most parents will tell you. Some might lie about it, but the truth is that those children have already misused that phone in multiple ways, and that was just your first inkling into a bigger problem that was coming.
Yeah.
So that's it. I'm out of time. I got 1%. Thanks for the conversation, Aru. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. We'll catch you next week.
Okay. All right.
All right, bud. Thank you.
Bye.